Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to be presenting artist, filmmaker Pallavi Paul's first virtual performance, Walking as Alibi, which is premised on a multi-channel film, Cynthia ke Sapne, The Dreams of Cynthia, which was co-commissioned by the Contour Biennale, the 8th edition, Polyphonic Worlds, Justice as Medium, and the AV Festival. And in this specific rendition of it, it's also a way of opening up the body and the cinematic grammar of a multi-site, multi-channel work, and bring in another aspect of this artist practice that uses the voice that arrives to language forms and the resonances that lie within linguistic production, which also challenge hegemonic historiographies, and at the same time, in this specific case, also really use the news archive in its formation of ways of linking to practices of dissent. So it's not necessarily the mainstream media archive, but then at the same time, what does it mean to actually link to that real-time nature of the news cycle and then sit with it to sort of find ways of not necessarily recycling, but to draw it in, to expand it, to use acoustic filters to also find ways to create opacity. These are all aspects of this particular work that will unfold within the course of several minutes, in which you're invited to sit back and watch together. There's also participation from collaborators who Pallavi has invited through ways in which, again, the voice takes over the frame. You're invited to sit and listen closely, decipher from the singular and the multiple what the desire of these voices is, and the forms of inhabitation that also build from two specific protagonists, but then surrender to the kinds of velocities and analyze those in relation to what has been taking place through the timeline of this pandemic, particularly in India, dealing also with the mass distress of migration, migrant labor, the impossibility of return to the countryside, to the post-industrial town, the impossibility of return to a pre-pandemic reality. And I'll stop there because this introduction is also just a way of welcoming the artist and welcoming you to take over and share this space that we have created digitally while we both sit in Berlin. And with that, also to share that Pallavi is currently artist in residence with the DAAD Artists-in-Berlin Program, who are also supporting this specific virtual element of Columboscope, Language as Migrant, through funds from the Federal Foreign Office that are meant to support cultural organizations through this time and provide relief support to the cultural field at large, especially in spaces like Sri Lanka, where we rely on an informal cultural economy, and on each of you to build it step by step with us. So thank you so much and enjoy.
Dear reader, to write to someone 600 years after their passing is to know that truth is bookended by shadows and reflections. Dear reader, both tricks of light write to someone. One 600 years is opaque after their dense, but fragile, that truth shrinking is and leaking with the slightest turn of obstacles. Both the other of light, transparent and thin, one, but sturdy, is opaque, dense, tough, but fragile. Often, the trouble is that we mistake one for the other with the slightest turn of obstacles.
This is not the first time that I work with letters. I like working with letters because they soothe the throb of language. They save words from being digested by the ravenous hunger of speech. Each word spoken has to dive from the edge of the tongue and cross the precipice of silence to enter the world of more words, of other sounds. And sometimes this is done so fast, in such quick succession, that words cannot hold on to one another. Atomized, they float, alone, unique, untethered from the world of their conception. And sometimes spoken words trespass into the territory of other words, alien words, words that do not understand one another. This almost always causes an empty sort of pain. Words in a letter, however, know how to hold on to each other. Each previous word teaches the next one how to stand, walk, and slowly something with a particular sway and swell begins to appear. That which comes from words watching out for each other. I sense this in the letters that I read. I try and replicate it in the letters that I write. I like letters, maybe even more than speech, because they distribute risk equally between words. No one word is sent diving fast and deep, beyond the edge of silence.
जब ये कारखाना बंद होता है पूरी शहर की किस्मत बदल जाती है। जब हम लड़के थे दूर से फैक्ट्री को देख के मचल जाते थे। खुशी सी होती थी। यूनिफॉर्म का बहुत शौक था, घड़ी का, वर्दी का। टाइम से आना जाना इसका बहुत शौक था। क्वार्टर भी अच्छा मिलता था उस टाइम। एक रुतबा था वर्कर का, धीरे धीरे सब बंद हो गया। कारखाना बंद हो गया, सपना हमारा अधूरा रह गया। फिर परिवार के अब इस काम में आ गए, फांसी के काम में आ गए। लेकिन ये काम भी अच्छा है, सोसाइटी की सेवा है।
Who is a worker, you may ask? Not simply a doer of work. To produce a capacity for work, its bearer must understand its needs. The desire of work to be done must be articulated by its doer. Its lonely, empty corners must be filled with imagination and tricks. The worker brings surprise to the appointed time of work, takes care of its debits and credits, holds the throbbing promise of work gently between the palms. A worker is not simply a doer of work. A worker conjures work, invents it beyond shackled time. Like the work of love, the worker does the work of work.
अरे तुम हटो रास्ते से सीखना ना तुम्हें नॉट लैंग्वेज ही हो हेलो एक्सक्यूज मी You know this one? कोई बात नहीं चाहो तो बाहर फिर जाएंगे बेचारे कुछ नहीं अरे पीछे कहाँ जा रहा हूँ
Imagine walking sequences from all the films that you have seen. Every single walk, run, sprint from every film. Now add them together, one behind the other. How far will you travel? How long would you have walked? The exhaustion of having walked too long will begin to dawn. It is also the exhaustion of walking back to places you have escaped from. It is also the exhaustion of knowing that the destination holds no respite. It is also the exhaustion of walking for sustenance and not ambition. It is exhaustion of knowing that the ceasing of the walk will be a ceasing of life itself. Walking, then, is the only alibi.
Exodus that hasn't been seen in India in decades. Thousands of migrant workers are on the move, most of them on foot.
कौन सा जिला है?
छतरपुर।
छतरपुर जिला
जी।
तो कैसे जाइएगा?
पैदल जाएंगे, क्या करें?
पैदल जाइएगा तो पैदल तो बहुत दूर है, आप कैसे पहुंचिएगा?
कुछ साधन ही ना, कुछ सरकार कर रही है।
चप्पल आपके?
चप्पल टूट गई।
ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿਸਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਇਹ ਕਿਸਾਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਕੀਮਤ ਤੇ ਰੁਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿਣਗੇ।
This is a longer and clearer video of the exact moment when in fact two speeding cars rammed into oblivious protesters. This is a 45-second clip that you see on your screen. So you can see an SUV arriving at full speed and moving down protesters, walking ahead peacefully. This new video has emerged 4 days after the violence in Lakhimpur led to the killing of 8 people, including 4 protesting farmers. The UP police, however, is yet to make a single arrest in the case. Farmer unions have demanded the arrest of Union Minister Ajay Mishra's son, Ashish Mishra, claiming that he was also part of the convoy of vehicles that ploughed into the crowd. Ashish Mishra, on his part, has denied being at the spot of the incident.
विघटन किसी वस्तु के संयोजक अंगों का इस प्रकार से अलग या नष्ट हो जाना कि उसका अस्तित्व ही खत्म हो जाए. The word विघटन must be used repeatedly. It does not mean a simple disappearance where things recede to the margins before becoming invisible. Vighatan refers to a kind of dissolution where each part of an object is destroyed or severed in a way that it becomes impossible to recognize the original. The violence is absolute. Poetically rendered, the meaning of this violence is abducted and taken away from the schemes of analysis. It exists, like Cynthia herself, a provocation to analysis. An analysis, of course, brings us to translation, the contradictions of translation, to be precise. It is done to share in meaning with the awareness that a big chunk of the sensations which produce meaning are being hacked away by the bludgeoning weight of language. In translation, poems and people live inadequately. In the absence of translation, they die partially. This conundrum reminds me of a morbid choice that the Russian novelist Alexander Solzhenitsyn presents to a character in his book, The Cancer Ward. Pavel Ruzanov, a Stalinist mid-level bureaucrat in post-Stalin Russia, finds himself in a cancer ward after he develops a lump in his throat. Once inside the ward, he meets two different kinds of people, thereby imagining two possible futures for himself. Those who could not be operated upon and those who could be. The ones with operable cancers would often undergo amputations, sometimes repeatedly. They looked like devils with their mangled, scar-ridden bodies, but appeared pain-free and slept peacefully, knowing that they could be back in the ward, but equally they could be cured forever. Those with inoperable cancers looked like Rusanov himself, their outer bodies intact. Not a mark on their smooth, pale skin, but they were the ones that kept him awake all night, howling in pain like beasts. There was nothing anyone could do to help. Solzhenitsyn made Rusanov's choice a difficult one. To choose between suffering and suffering is tough. What choice have we given Cynthia and her comrades, translated protagonists of the world around us?